Imagine this. What if the very parts of yourself you've been running from, your fears, your insecurities, your anger, even your shame, were not enemies, but the hidden map to the life you're meant to live? What if the things you hide in the dark corners of your soul hold the key to your greatest freedom? It sounds almost contradictory, doesn't it? We spend so much of our lives trying to overcome or suppress these inner struggles. But what if they are not obstacles at all? What if they are signals, a compass, a guide to your true purpose? This is the profound question Carl Jung, the Swiss psychiatrist and father of depth psychology, forces us to confront. He believed that our shadow, the hidden, unconscious side of our personality that contains all the traits and desires we try to disown, was not something to reject, but something to embrace. Jung saw the shadow as both terrifying and transformative. To deny it was to live half a life. To integrate it was to step into wholeness. Think about it. How many times have you caught yourself judging someone else, only to realize later that your strong reaction revealed more about you than about them? How often have you felt an inner pull towards something, an ambition, a passion, even a desire that you dismissed as wrong or impractical? We bury these truths because society, family, or even our own minds tell us they are unacceptable. And yet, paradoxically, these buried truths often carry the seeds of our deepest meaning. Jung himself once wrote, "Everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves." This is the essence of the shadow. It is not simply the dark, destructive parts of our psyche. It is potential raw, unrefined energy that we pushed away because we were afraid of what it might say about us. But energy does not disappear. Just because we suppress it, it waits. And the more we push it down, the stronger it becomes. Picture trying to hold a beach ball underwater. The harder you press it down, the more violently it bursts back up. It is your shadow. It erupts in outbursts, in inexplicable reactions, in dreams that unsettle you, in the people you find yourself strangely drawn to or fiercely repelled by. The shadow reveals itself not by knocking politely on the door, but by breaking through the cracks in the walls we build around it. So here's the question you must ask yourself. What are you hiding? What are the parts of yourself you've convinced yourself are too ugly, too shameful, too unacceptable to acknowledge? And what if those very parts are trying to teach you something about your purpose? Let's take this deeper. Jung believed that the shadow isn't just about darkness, but about wholeness. You cannot be complete if you reject half of who you are. Integration, what Jung called individuation, is the process of becoming whole by bringing the unconscious into conscious awareness. It means not only knowing your persona, the mask you show to the world, but also embracing the parts of you that you'd rather no one ever sees. Every myth, every great story mirrors this psychological truth. Think of Hercules, who didn't just slay monsters outside himself, but had to face his own rage and destructive impulses. Think of Luke Skywalker, who had to confront the dark side within himself before he could truly become a Jedi. These are not just heroic tales, they're metaphors for our own journeys. To step into purpose, you must face your shadow. To become whole, you must embrace the parts of yourself you most fear. Now pause for a moment and reflect. Are there parts of you that you've hidden, even from yourself? Maybe it's envy, resentment toward others who have what you want. Maybe it's anger, fear you've been told to suppress because it isn't nice or appropriate. Maybe it's creativity, dreams you've buried because someone once told you they weren't practical. Jung would tell you, these aren't flaws to eradicate. They're messages, signals. They are pieces of you asking to be heard. But here's the paradox. The shadow gains its greatest power when it is denied. The unconscious will not stay unconscious forever. It will break through in projection. Projection is one of Jung's most compelling insights. When we refuse to acknowledge something in ourselves, we tend to see it in others. You might criticize someone for arrogance when deep down you've buried your own longing to be bold and confident. You might resent someone's success, not because of who they are, because it mirrors the potential you've abandoned. The world becomes a mirror, reflecting the parts of ourselves we have yet to claim. And here's where Jung's philosophy becomes transformative. The shadow doesn't just reveal what is broken in us, reveals our potential. The energy you use to repress your shadow could instead be used to create. That suppressed anger, it might fuel activism, justice, or art. That disowned longing for attention, this could be the spark for performance, storytelling, or leadership. That shame you carry, it could be the root of your deepest empathy for others. Think about the great creators and leaders in history. Frida Kahlo's art was inseparable from her pain and identity struggles. Martin Luther King Jr. transformed righteous anger into a movement that reshaped society. Their shadows weren't hidden away. They were channeled, expressed, integrated. That is the power of shadow work. But let's be honest, this work isn't easy. Facing your shadow requires radical self-honesty. It means asking yourself hard questions. What do I fear most about myself? What parts of me do I deny? What dreams have I abandoned? Self-honesty isn't about judgment, it's about awareness. Like cleaning a cluttered room, you can't make use of the space until you first admit the mess exists. When you finally turn toward your shadow, something extraordinary happens. The parts of you that once scared you begin to reveal their gifts. The fear that held you back becomes courage when faced. The anger you suppressed becomes fuel for creation. The insecurity you hid becomes a doorway to compassion. In Jung's words, one does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. So ask yourself, what if your purpose, the reason you are here, SNT, hidden in some external treasure chest, but buried inside your own shadow? What if everything you've been trying to avoid is the very thing that could set you free? This is where the journey begins. By acknowledging the shadow, you begin the process of integration. And by integrating, you move closer to wholeness. Your purpose isn't something you find, it's something you uncover. It's been there all along, hidden in the very parts of yourself you've been running from. The question is, are you willing to face it? So here you are standing at the edge of yourself. You've glimpsed the truth that the shadow is not your enemy, but your guide. But the real question remains, what does it mean to actually embrace it? To not only understand this idea intellectually, but to live it. How do you take something hidden in the depths of your psyche and bring it into the light of everyday life? Jung was clear about one thing. Awareness alone is not enough. Real transformation begins only when awareness is followed by integration. You can know about your shadow, you can even name the traits you've been avoiding, but until you bring them into harmony with the rest of yourself, they will continue to act in the background, shaping your life in ways you don't control. Think of it like music. Imagine an orchestra where half the instruments are muted because the conductor thinks their sound is too harsh, it's too strange, too overwhelming. The music would feel incomplete, thin, hollow. That's what happens when you silence your shadow. You may think you're creating harmony by keeping only the pleasant parts of yourself. But what you actually create is dissonance. Only when all instruments play together, light and dark, can you hear the true music of your soul. So, how do you let your shadow play? The first step is radical self-honesty. This is where most people turn away, because it requires admitting things they'd rather not admit. Yes, I feel envy. Yes, I judge people unfairly. Yes, I crave attention. Yes, I am afraid. But here's the critical point. Honesty is not judgment. To admit a truth about yourself doesn't mean you condemn yourself. It simply means you acknowledge reality. Reality, once faced, loses its power to control you. The next step is dialogue. Jung often encouraged his patients to converse with their shadow, as though it were a separate being sitting across from them. You can try this yourself. Ask, why do you feel this way? What are you protecting me from? What do you need from me? This may sound strange, but remember, the shadow is a part of you that has been silenced. It wants to speak, and when it does, you may be surprised at the answers. Sometimes what you thought was pure darkness turns out to be a wounded part of yourself, longing for recognition. From here, something remarkable begins to happen. As you listen, the shadow softens. It becomes less of a monster in the basement and more of a hidden ally. You start to see that its impulses, however misguided, were often attempts to protect you. That deep-seated anger may have been your psyche's way of standing up for you when no one else did. That craving for approval may have been a response to years of neglect. That fear of failure may have been a survival mechanism, trying to keep you safe. When you recognize this, compassion arises not just for yourself, but for others. And this is where relationships come into play. Jung believed that the shadow doesn't stay contained inside of us. It spills outward, shaping the way we connect with others. Have you noticed how certain people always seem to trigger you? Maybe it's their arrogance, their laziness, their selfishness. Often these reactions are not just about them, they are mirrors reflecting pieces of your own shadow. When you begin to recognize this, conflict transforms into opportunity. Instead of blaming or resenting the other, you can ask, what part of me is being revealed here? What can I learn about myself? Imagine how much more peaceful relationships could become if more people did this. Instead of projecting our hidden wounds onto each other, we could use those interactions as paths to greater self-awareness. We would judge less, understand more, and in doing so, we would create deeper, more authentic connections. But the shadow isn't only about relationships. It is also the birthplace of creativity and purpose. Jung saw creativity as one of the most direct ways of engaging the unconscious. The energy you spend suppressing your shadow can instead be transformed into expression. Think of the greatest artists, leaders, and visionaries. Their work was not born of denial, but of confrontation. They faced their shadows and turned them into masterpieces. Consider Frida Kahlo, who poured her suffering and identity struggles into paintings that still move the world. Or Martin Luther King Jr., who channeled righteous anger into a movement that demanded justice. Their shadows didn't destroy them, they fueled them. The darkness became light because they dared to integrate it. So here's a powerful question. What passions? What projects? What dreams have you silenced because they felt too risky, too raw, too shameful? What if those are the very things that hold your purpose? What if the part of you you've tried hardest to hide is actually the part of you the world most needs? And this leads us to Jung's most profound insight. Embracing your shadow docility just transforms you, it transforms the world. When you confront your darkness, you stop projecting it onto others. Stop fighting invisible battles within yourself that spill outward as judgment, resentment, or cruelty. Instead, you radiate authenticity. You live from wholeness, not fragmentation. Jung believed that individuation, the process of becoming whole, wasn't just personal, it was collective. Each time an individual integrates their shadow, they contribute to the evolution of humanity itself. Because the world's conflicts are, in essence, the collective shadow being played out on a massive scale. Wars, hatred, oppression, they are projections of denied parts of the human psyche. If enough people embraced their own shadows, humanity itself could shift toward compassion, understanding, and peace. Now pause and let that sink in. Your shadow work is not just about you finding personal happiness or peace, it's about contributing to a more conscious world. By facing your own darkness, you give others permission to face theirs. Act. By becoming whole, you inspire others to do the same. This is how personal transformation ripples outward into collective transformation. And so the journey comes back to you. You have a choice. Continue living fragmented, denying the parts of yourself that scare you, or begin the lifelong work of integration. Begin to ask, what is my shadow trying to teach me? How can I use its energy for creation rather than suppression? What steps can I take today to face the parts of myself I've hidden away? Remember, this is not a one-time event. It is a journey that will take courage, patience, and honesty. But with every step, you move closer to the person you are meant to be. A person not divided but whole. A person not hiding but shining. A person not shackled by fear but liberated by truth. As Jung once said, the privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. Your shadow is not here to destroy you. It is here to guide you, to challenge you, to lead you home to yourself. The great question remains, will you keep running from the darkness, or will you turn and face it? Because within that darkness lies the map to your destiny.